First things first, I don't own a computer desk. I have a laptop. I put my laptop on my lap. So I have to rig different ways for me to prop my camera so that I can get these set up, and I didn't want to do that tonight. I was way too lazy, so I am sitting on my floor with my camera on a small stack of things, so that I didn't have to try very hard and rebuild that big tower that I had last time. I wasn't really going to make this video. I'm still pretty sure that I'm not actually going to be following through with this whole vlog thing, just because I wasn't expecting that my boyfriend would promote me the way he did, and I don't know, I feel like even though I have almost 100 views, I think that's how many I have, over 100 views, I don't really feel like any of them count. Not to say that you guys don't count, I just was kind of hoping that this would be a stumbled upon and really liked kind of thing, and if you're just blatantly told to come here, I don't know, it's not the same. But I've been getting just some encouragement, and he really wants me to keep this going, so I'm doing this for him. Initially, I was just going to talk about a book that I read recently, but then I decided that I would expand it broader to make it just be about just young adult literature in general, because I eat that shit up. I loved young adult literature so much. I love literature in general. Reading is just such an incredible thing to me. I mean, you can sit on your bed in your home, in your room that you're used to every day, and be transported to any number of worlds at your choosing, and you become so invested emotionally with these characters and these places and these events, and reading is just the coolest thing ever. Why don't more people read? Today I went to the library. I used to go to the library a lot, and then life happened. I'm not sure. I just stopped going to the library really very much. So today I went back to the library. I owed some past due money, and I didn't know how much, and I lost my library card in 2009, and so I went to the library mostly just to settle that. Not necessarily intending to get any books, but mostly just to settle that debt and to get myself a new library card, because there's a library right behind my work. So I figured, I can't really work that close to a library, be that close to a library 5 days a week, and not at least have a library card and go in there every once in a while. So I did that today, got that covered. Fun fact, it used to be that the Phoenix Public Library, if you owed $10 or more, you couldn't check out books until you paid at least part of that balance. They changed it to $25. Way exciting, because I owed $13.20. So I could check out books, even if I didn't want to pay any of that. I did end up paying some of that because I felt like an asshole for owing them money. And so I figured, whatever, I had to pay $2 to replace my library card, so I just said, I'll put $8 toward it, I'll pay you an even $10. First, before I get into talking about all of the other books I want to talk about, I want to start off with just an overview, general thing about young adult literature. While it is my favorite genre, hands down my very favorite genre, it's, in my opinion, just really hard to get right, because anyone thinks they can write young adult literature. Lots of people believe they're able to write young adult literature, and really, it's not, because either the characters and events end up being way too grown up to be believable because the writer is too mature, or the writer has this concept that young adult literature is just dramatically immature. I think it's kind of hard to strike that balance. For me as a reader, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of medium between the two extremes, so when I'm able to find those, I latch onto it. It's the greatest thing in the world. The primary book I wanted to talk about, first and foremost, I wanted to promote this book called Sharkbait, written by a self-published author who is actually a personal friend of a personal friend of mine. This book, there's really nothing extraordinary about it, nothing that, should set it apart from any of the other young adult novels. It's, basic awkward female heroine transfers to a new school and, you know, has to find her in and meets a new cute boy, and then they fall in love, and then they break up, and then they realize they can't live without each other. You know, the basic formula, nothing significant about it in the bare bones, but it's just written very well. Brief overview of the plot. Main character, Cammie, she's been homeschooled for her whole life. Now she's 15 years old, and because of her mother's illness, she's actually having to move to California and go into a public high school. Meets Tristan Davis, who is, you know, dreamboat extraordinaire. I picture him as Jared Padalecki, Sam from Supernatural. Watch Supernatural. I don't know, that's just how I see him. That's, you know, when you're reading, you form this own image of the characters in your mind. That's my image of him. Yours can be whatever you want it to be. Cammie meets Tristan, and she totally falls for him, and her new friend, Kate, her new friend Kate, is actually really close friends with Tristan, has been for most of her life, and they kind of scheme and plot to get Tristan to fall in love with her, and it ends up working, and then it ends up falling apart, and then they put it back together, and it's the first in a 6-book series, and I am so excited to read the rest. I devoured this book. I first heard about it because the author, Jen Cooksey, is very close friends with my good friend Kelly, and I went to one of Kelly's barbecues a month or so ago, and Kelly said, "This is my friend Jen. She just published a novel on the Nook and the Kindle, so if you guys want to check it out, that would just be really great of you. It's $2.99, and I'm just trying to help her spread the word." And so I said, "Oh yeah, okay," because back to the whole, it's, you know, it's kind of hard to pinpoint a good way to write young adult fiction. And so I kind of shrugged it off, and then my friend Alyssa read the book, and she texted me in the middle of the night and said, "I haven't gone to sleep yet. I've been reading Sharkbait all night long. You need to read this book." And so I started reading it just because, you know, Kelly told me to, and now Alyssa's telling me she's reading it. It's great. And every free hour of my life until I was done was spent reading this book. If I was awake and not at work, I was reading this book. And it was just really good. It was just really good. If you like young adult fiction, if you're into the traditional formula of young adult fiction with, you know, it's hilarious, it's emotional, it's everything that a good young adult novel should be. Sharkbait by Jen Cooksey. It is available on the Kindle, it is available on the Nook, but you can also purchase a physical copy through Amazon's self-publisher thing for $13.99. For $3 if you have a Nook or a Kindle, it is an insanely good investment if you're a fan of young adult literature. So that's first and foremost Sharkbait. Now I want to get into the other part that I was most excited about. The first YouTube channel I ever really got hooked on was the Vlogbrothers. A lot of people are familiar with the Vlogbrothers. Knights Chow says hi. The Vlogbrothers, Hank Green and John Green, if you don't know anything about them, initially they were two brothers who started out, they decided they were going to go a year without any text-based communication. So how they were going to communicate with one another was each of them, alternating days, would make a video to the other, and they would share it on their YouTube channel, and it ended up catching on in a big way, and they still do it to this day. They started, I think, in 2007. But John Green is a young adult fiction writer, and he has 5 books published, I think. An Abundance of Catherines, Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, The Fault in Our Stars, and Will Grace and Will Grace. And I think those are the 5. I don't think I'm missing any. At any rate, of those 5, I have read 2. I've read An Abundance of Catherines and Looking for Alaska. An Abundance of Catherines is a decent book. It's not the best book I've ever read, and I don't really have any major complaints about it. It's kind of unremarkable. You know, An Abundance of Catherines is okay. You know, yeah, sure, read that one, but Looking for Alaska is the book that you need to read. And it is one of my favorite books in the world. Looking for Alaska by John Green it's such an incredible story, and it's just a really stellar book. It's so emotional. I wept. I wept when I read this book. It was so good. Another book that from the time I opened it to the time I closed it, if I wasn't asleep or at work or at school, I was reading. Looking for Alaska by John Green, and when I was at the library today, everything's just coming full circle. When I was at the library today, I wasn't intending to check out any books right away, but I decided that as long as I was there, I would go into the young adult section, because we all know how much I love young adult literature, and just see what John Green books were available there. I've been wanting to read for a very long time Paper Towns, and I've also been interested in reading The Fault in Our Stars, even though I don't know too much about it, other than it was written by John Green, who seems to be better and better every time he writes a new book. So since this is his most recent book, I figured it's, statistically likely to be his best. So I checked this out, The Fault in Our Stars, again by John Green, and I'm so excited to start reading it. I haven't even cracked it open yet. You guys just shared that moment with me. As soon as I'm done here and I'm done editing, I might not even start editing tonight. I might just put this up another time and start reading this book, but I am so excited. It is apparently electric, filled with staccato bursts of humor and tragedy, says Jodi Picoult, who wrote My Sister's Keeper. That book, by the way, if you've seen the movie and you haven't read the book, forget the movie, erase that from your mind. I don't know why they ever did that. Read the book. The book was really good. The book was really, really, really good, and the ending was entirely different. They changed the ending completely. If you've seen the movie and you haven't read the book, you need to read the book. With the ending they chose in the movie, the theme just disappears. Like, the whole theme of the book, the whole point, goes away with the ending that they changed in the movie. I'll never understand that. And that book was My Sister's Keeper. And now I kind of just wanted to, since I just talked about everything I was planning on talking about, just go over some other book recommendations I have for you if you are into young adult literature like I am. If you're into humor and hilarity, diary-style books like I am, I feed off it. I don't have the first book in this series. It's fallen apart as most of the rest of them are, but Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging by Louise Renison. What I have here is the second book in the 9 or 10 part series. On the Bright Side, I'm Now the Girlfriend of a Sex God is part 2, and it's just so funny. Just a riot. I had to make a rule for myself when I was reading this series that I wouldn't read it in public, because there's nothing more embarrassing than, sitting silently in the middle of a crowded room, just reading your book, minding your own business, and then bursting out laughing, and everyone looks at you like you're crazy. So, the Confessions of Georgia Nicholson series by Louise Renison, the first one being Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, then it's On the Bright Side, I'm Now the Girlfriend of a Sex God, and then it's Knocked Out by My Nunga Nungas, and then I don't know the order they go in, and I probably couldn't even name all 9 or 10, and since I don't know if there are 9 or 10, then that's absolutely true. But there's such a freaking riot. Such a riot. And of course, there's drama tied into, as with any good young adult literature, that's just part of the checklist, but it's mostly very comedic and very fun. So, Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, Part 1 in the Confessions of Georgia Nicholson series. Ooh! Knocked Out by My Nunga Nungas. This, again, is one of my favorite books. The Last Days of Summer by Steve Kluger. I would say this is probably my 3rd favorite book. Looking for Alaska being my 2nd favorite book. And bonus points to whoever can guess my first. The Last Days of Summer by Steve Kluger. It's about a young boy, a young Jewish boy in 1940s Brooklyn. And he really, really loves Charlie Banks, who plays for the New York Giants, which in the 1940s was a baseball team. And they were rivals with the Brooklyn Dodgers. The Brooklyn Dodgers. So there's some baseball history for you if you didn't already know that. You should have already known that. If you didn't already know that, then at any rate, Joey Margulis is a big fan of Charlie Banks, third baseman for the New York Giants, and he writes Charlie all these letters explaining to Charlie, I'm your biggest fan, I really want to meet you, and, nothing really comes of it because Charlie Banks is big, he's a sports hero, he's a celebrity, he's an American icon, he doesn't really have time for this little Jewish boy's problems or anything, and so he, sends a signed picture, and Joey keeps sending him these letters, and, yeah, a signed picture's great, but here's the thing, I have trouble with these bullies, and then I just, if you just showed up at my house, then maybe they would stop bothering me, and things like that. And then Charlie starts writing him response letters saying, look kid, you're a pain in my ass, please stop writing me letters, I don't care about your bullies, I don't care what's going on in your life, I know you don't have cancer, no I'm not going to hit one out of the park for you, just stop bugging me. And then they end up actually developing a friendship. Charlie Banks actually shows up at Joey's home, and they end up developing this really great bond. Joey's father is kind of absent from the picture, and Charlie steps in, even being present at his bar mitzvah. And then Charlie goes off to war. It's an incredible book. It is so incredible. Absolutely, probably the most emotion I've ever felt reading a book, for sure. Later Gator by Lauren Miracle. It's the first in a four-part series. It's just three friends who I-am each other. It's not even that they're good, it's that they're so ridiculous that they become good. Oh, I'm sorry, TTYL is the first one. This is the third one. TTYL by Lauren Miracle is the first one, and it's three friends, Zoe, Maddie, and Angela. If you were ever a girl in high school, you know how hard it is to have two best friends. I've been there. If you're a female, you've probably been there, and so that's where that book goes. Caroline B. Cooney is one of my favorite young adult authors. This is actually the third, I think it's the third, it is the fourth in a series. The first one is The Face on the Milk Carton. There's a movie that I saw on Lifetime based on the book The Face on the Milk Carton, and it's about a girl who sees her face on a milk carton and goes home and says, hey parents, why was I a missing child? The whole story unfolds. Not necessarily this series, it was a very riveting series, I enjoyed it very much, but just Caroline B. Cooney in general, I've never read a book of hers that I didn't love. And since the whole theme is young adult fiction and how difficult it could be to write young adult fiction, and the fact that she's never failed me, you might want to check her out. I Can't Tell You by Hilary Frank is about a boy who stops talking one night in a drunken argument, makes a confession to his best friend and roommate that gets him in a lot of trouble, and so he decides that he's going to give up talking altogether and he's only going to communicate through writing because it gives him the chance to second guess what he wants to say. And so all of his friends support him in that and take on writing back and forth to him, so it's just a series of all of the notes and everything that he and his friends write to each other, and there's the love interest, there's the conflict, there's the drama, there's the comedy, everything that you should have in a good young adult fiction book. I Can't Tell You by Hilary Frank. I'm not going to say it's one of my favorite books in that it's in the top 10, but it's probably in the top 25. Absolutely in the top 50. And I have read a lot of books, so top 50 is still good. I think that's it for young adult fiction. I think I covered everything I was planning on covering.